But my story is not about sex, so I'm sorry. I also have to get it out of my head for the last hour. All I keep thinking is I'm the second Gary Shandling picture. It's been replaying in my head. Anywho, okay. So the standard commitment to work at to be a volunteer at the humanitarian suicide hotline is 6 months. That's what you're asked to do. 6 months. Most people stay 6 months. Some people last a year, but nobody makes it past a year. I volunteered there for 4 years because I'm a fucking idiot. Now, I originally joined when I was 22-year-old psych major at Queens College, the University of Queens College, and I wanted to go to grad school for clinical psych, but I had a GPA of 2 point, and to get into grad school, I needed some leverage, I needed some internships, so I decided to volunteer. So I show up one Saturday at about 8 a.m. at this building on the Lower West Side, and I go inside, there's about 60 people milling about, and right away I see a guy that's obviously the guy in charge. There's this gray-haired guy sitting on the desk, sort of ex-hippies, turned a little corporate, he's dipping a chamomile tea bag into an NPR coffee cup, you know what I mean? I know who this fucking guy is. And he just looks out and he's like, "Hey man, my name's Glenn. Oh, check it out. Thank you all so much for coming, right on." I'm like, oh fuck. Glenn goes on to tell us that he appreciates us all being there and he's glad we're all there, but not all of us are gonna make it to the phone lines, that there's certain reasons why people who volunteer shouldn't be there. And that's what he says, but because Glenn tends to be a little passive aggressive, because he is like this hippie sort of turned, but he's also got this Jewish metrosexual like Louis Gossett Jr. drill sergeant thing. Because as soon as the training class started, people started dropping, and basically there were two things that people were dropping for. One, either they were there and they couldn't get their agendas out from the phone conversations. They were either homophobic or racist or misogynistic or just fucking idiots. There were these two guys from Queens who kept calling people fucking douchebag. You know what I mean? So like those sort of people could not work the lines. And then the other people are what Glenn referred to as suicide survivors, people who had somebody in their family had tried to kill themselves, or they themselves had attempted suicide. And as Glenn would say, "Yeah, check it out. You need to befriend yourself." Right on. So, at the end of 2 weeks of training, at a total of 58 of us, 4 of us made it to the phones, because Glenn was really good at his job, but I was better. Because what Glenn didn't know was 2 years before I worked at the hotline, I lived in San Diego, California, and I was dating this girl, Tracy, who we'll just describe as being a miserable human being. And she was addicted to meth. I was addicted to her. She would try to do the meth, I would try to do her. Neither one of us would ever be satisfied because that's fucking addiction. And she was a horrible person. And one day she fucked my best friend, this guy named Babyface, who looked like Morrissey, which is why she fucked him, because she was in Smiths and the emo because we were young. And I finally had it, and I jumped in my 5-speed puke orange VW Fastback, an awesome golden car, and I drove to my dad's house in Del Mar in San Diego, where my dad lived. And Glenn doesn't know any of this, that my father's a retired New York City cop, and he had a gun and a 38 in his thing and a lockbox. I took the 38 and put it in and I went to the liquor cabinet where my dad keeps tequila, even though my dad doesn't drink. He has 5 alcoholic, 5 kids that are alcoholics, but he keeps a bar. Like, thanks, Dad. So I took a bottle of fucking not recovering alcoholics continually. Anyway, so. And so I took the bottle of tequila, I took the gun, I jumped in my car and I drove to the beach and I drank a half a bottle of tequila and I took the gun, which is the old kind with the thing, and I pulled the hammer back and I stuck the gun in my mouth. And I bet Glenn doesn't know how good it feels to put a gun in your mouth. Even right here, saying it out loud, it feels it feels good to say it, because there is that like, I can have some fucking control over the shitty, miserable existence of a life that we all have. And things are going good. Don't worry about me, but I'm saying, but sometimes it feels good to fucking stick a gun in your mouth. I'm just putting it out there. And I was sitting in my car, and not that good. They're not mine. They're not, anyway, so I took the gun, and I don't know what to do, whether the chin or the face or the head. Like, you see it different ways in movies, and I don't want to be one of those guys that's like, you know what I mean? So it's like, so I was thinking maybe I should take the gun and shoot it like down through my brains and like out my, I don't know how that would work. So but the thing is about tequila is it tends to make me a little dramatic. I'm not a good, I want to be Bukowski, you know what I mean? But I'm Dr. Phil. Like I'm not, I want to be, I try, but I'm not. And I threw up on my suicide gun in my mouth. which is a great way to snap you out of suicide, because even I was like, this is a little ridiculous. And so I wiped the puke off, and I put the gun down, and I went in the ocean because I was at the beach, and a beautiful full moon, it was night, and I sat in the water, and had for me what it was like this perfect life moment, where I'm sitting in the water, in the waves, going back and forth, and to me, clearly I thought, that's what it is. That's life, it's the waves. It's like, sometimes it's good, and then it's shit. And then it's good, and then it's shit. And it's always gonna be shit, mostly, but every once in a while there's a good wave, and that's enough. That's gotta be enough. But Glenn didn't know any of that, because I never told him. So I got to the hotline. So at the end of 2 weeks of training, 58, 4 of us make it to lines, and Glenn says, good luck on the lines. Here's a little last bit of advice before you go out there, is remember that 99% of all suicides are, or people that call are not suicidal. They're people who are sad, lonely, crazy, but they're not, most people just want to talk to somebody. In fact, he would say, the closest you can get to a warning sign of suicide hotline is to hear somebody say, like, I don't want to die, I just want the pain to stop. If you ever hear that, that bell should go off, something's wrong. Most of the calls were that. They were crazy fucking people. You'd hear their problems, you'd be like, you think you got fucking problems? You know what I mean? Like, you want to say, like, fuck you. Like, I will tell you, I am fucking broke. But, like, you don't. But you don't. I was a good humanitarian. I did exactly what Glenn said, which were basically answer the calls, say, humanitarians, thank you for calling the hotline, can I help you? Ask open-ended questions. Be an active listener. Don't get uncomfortable with silence, because as Glenn would say, silence is a form of communication. Right on, see that? But also don't get manipulated by it. So if the phone call goes on to like 7, 8, like after about 5 or 6 minutes, you got to end the call with silence and hang up. And also calls should be like 12, but no more than 20 minutes. And when it's time to get off the phone call, you have to evaluate the caller's level of suicide. And the way you do that is you ask a series of 4 questions. Do you feel so bad that you think about suicide? Do you have a plan for how you would do that? Have you set a time for when you're going to do that? Have you taken any steps today to do that? 99% of the calls, yes, no, no, no. People think about it, but they don't actually go through with it. So, just to give you an idea of the hotline, there's a couple of desk phones, some plants, there's like 2 things on the walls, there's a bunch of phone numbers, there's Glenn's home phone number in case you need to call him, poison control in case you need that, GMHC, helpline, Covenant House, different helplines, and then 911 in case you forget that 911 is 911. And then on the other wall, there was a big sign that said, shut up and listen. And that's why I stayed there for 4 years. That is a fucking great sentence, and because it is what prevents suicide. It's a great sentence for 2 reasons. One, because we don't listen to people, and when you hear other people's problems, there is a part of you that's like, holy shit, I'm not as fucked up as some people. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of, if you go to the park, and you look down, you see a squirrel, and you say, well, at least I'm not a fucking squirrel. There's that. And then probably not the right reason either. And the second reason is the altruism. Is that is as close as you can come to altruism. Is like, because that is how you do help people, is listening without your point of views, and just, it's hard. We don't have it in our lives. Listen to people is important. So that's what you do. So 4 years I worked there. My last night I go in, it's the overnight shift. It's 11 at night to 2 in the morning. I come in, there's me and my shift partner, we had last names as numbers. His name was Adam 213 because we have to be anonymous. He was a communist, not relevant at all to the story. I'm working the overnight shift. The phones are busy till about 4:30. Like when the bars start closing, people come home, they call for like a half hour, an hour, and then people pass out drunk. And then around 5, it sort of slows down, and the phone rings every 15 minutes. So around 5:30 in the morning, I get a phone call. I pick it up. It's my turn. I answer the phone, and I'm like, humanitarian suicide hotline, can I help you? And this very young, cute, sort of scared voice comes on and goes, hi, my name's Amy. I'd like to talk. And I said, hey, Amy, what's going on? And she tells me that she's feeling a little bit, she's feeling a little bit down, she's feeling a little depressed, sad, and I said, okay, well, what's going on? She goes, well, nothing, really, I shouldn't be depressed, everything good, I'm at NYU, my grades are good, I have a good relationship with my parents, they don't always get it, but they love me, you know, like, she was like a normal, and I was like, okay, well, that's great, you said you were sad, what, and I pictured her with, like, big, like, when you were on the phone with somebody, like, blue eyes, and, like, pictured long hair, sitting in her NYU dorm, which is nicer than a Queens college dorm, because Queens fucking college doesn't have dorms, it's a state school. And you know what I mean? I got who she was. And so I said, what's going on when you're feeling sad? You said all those things are nice, but like, what's sad? She goes, I don't know. That's the problem, is not having control. That some days she would feel really good, and so the next day she would try to have control. So she would wake up and try to repeat her actions. So she would wake up at the same time, eat the same food, try to like do a pattern so she can say like, well, that made me feel good yesterday. But then she said she would feel this, which she described as this hand come from behind her every once in a while and sort of push her down. I said, okay, well, what's going on when that happens? And she said, well, everything, but also nothing. And now I'm like, oh God, now she's getting a little annoying. And she sort of laughed. Paradox. And so she, but then she laughed and she sort of caught herself and she goes, you know, I feel stupid because I think depression is stupid and I think that I don't have the right, like I think a lot of people, there are people, and I feel the same way, just to put, like, there are people who are clinically or social, like different nature, whatever your belief system on what causes, there are people who are, but a lot of us bullshit our way through it. Like, sure, there are days still where I don't get out of bed, but I'm not depressed. So like I can relate to that, and so the thing that was happening was we were kind of, I don't want to say flirting, but we were flirting. I talked to a lot of crazy people at the hotline, and me and her clicked. You know what I mean? Like we might have, if in a different, anyway. So, so we started talking about that, and I was like, okay. And I noticed it was like it had been like about 15, 20 minutes. And I need to wrap up the phone call, and I was about to. And then she goes, look, I'm sorry. I know it's selfish, and it's stupid, but I can't do it anymore. It needs to stop. And I said, what do you mean by it when you say it needs to stop? And she goes, well, I don't want to do it, but I need the pain to stop, which is Glenn's warning sign. So I was like, oh fuck. And I asked her, do you feel so bad that you think about suicide? And she said, yes. And I said, do you have a plan for how you would do it? She said, uh-huh. I said, yeah. Amy, have you taken any steps today to kill yourself? And she said she did. And I said, what have you done? And she said she took some painkillers, and I asked her how many, and I asked her what kind, and I wrote down the information. I asked her how long ago, and I asked her if she'd been drinking, and I was getting all this information. I wrote down on a piece of paper, and I looked over to Adam, who was the other phone call, and I threw a pencil to wake him up because he had fallen asleep. He looked over, he shut his phone off, which is the protocol. He comes over and got my list. He calls poison control while I keep Amy on the phone talking to find out what that'll do so I can give her the information. I'm talking to her, we're talking about when she's growing up, and her father was in Tennessee, and he had, they took her out for ice cream. It was a park, and it was this great day in her life, and she remembers the ice cream, and I'm like, oh, that's great. What kind of ice cream did you have? And I'm thinking, like, what the fuck am I talking about ice cream to this girl just maybe kill herself? Anna comes back with a note with the information from poison control, and I said, Amy, given the fact that you took 20 high-strength painkillers an hour ago and you haven't got sick, do you realize that you could be dead within the next half hour? And she started crying, and I was like, look, I can help you. I can call 911. I can, if you want me to, I can, but I can't unless you want me to. That's the rule. We're not going to intervene. I'll stay on the phone with you, but if you want me to, I can help you. Do you want me to? And she said yes. And I said, thank God, and I got her address, and I handed it to Adam, who went to go call 911, and I kept her on the phone talking, we were talking, and he called 911, and she was like kind of slurring her speech, but she was coming in and out, and there was like this moment where she just sort of said, you know, it was strawberry ice cream. I was like, what? Oh, the ice cream, but then she stopped talking, and then it went silent for about 5 minutes, and then 6 minutes, nothing, and I'm supposed to hang up, but who the fuck would? And at about 10 minutes, and then somewhere around like 16, 17 minutes, I hear like some muffled noises outside, and I hear the door burst open, and I hear some footsteps, and I hear somebody pick up the phone and say, it's okay, we've got her, click. And so I quit the hotline. I went home that day, and I decided, I'm not gonna be a humanitarian anyway, ever again. Don't believe in anything. Fuck my wave story. So Glenn called me, wanted to befriend me. He's like, hey man, you need to come in and talk about it. I was like, okay, Glenn. He's like, I don't think I can today. He's like, hey man, click, hung up, never talked to Glenn again. I checked, I did all the things you're not supposed to do for 3 days. I checked the newspapers and the radio. It was pre-Google, so, on day 3, I found on page 24 of the Newsday at the time, an article that was written that said that a 21-year-old student named Amy Walters had died of an accidental overdose in her apartment. And I know why they say accidental overdose. I get it, because that's one of those, you know, things that you're not supposed to talk about. Suicides, plus there's insurance and stigmas. They also don't want epidemics to start in schools. I get the whole fucking thing, but what I didn't know until that moment was that that she had died, and that I was the last person to talk to her. Not her mom in Tennessee or her best friend who she talked about on the phone in Tennessee. No one, me. And so the thing about this story, and this is I talked to her for, you know, 20 minutes 15 years ago now. So I've had bigger personal tragedies in my own life than that. We all have, because it is a fucking pigsty. That's a Morrissey quote for... and I look at it and I think, well, the reason I tell it is because she never got to find out what I found out that day at the ocean. Because she's me in that car if I had pulled that trigger. Same age, same situation. And what I say is, she never got to find out that there are those perfect... Life is a fucking horrible, shitty... It's better to never been born, but we shouldn't kill ourselves.